What if your relationship with sex has nothing to do with your partner and everything to do with your relationship with yourself? Welcome to Midlife Butterfly for the high-achieving woman in midlife who has spent years showing up for everyone except herself. This podcast is where emotional exhaustion meets nervous system healing and where people-pleasing gives way to self-remembrance. I am Ken as you, identity and embodiment guide, because I know you are doing the inner work. It's time to settle that wisdom from your mind into your body so you can feel alive again. In this episode, you will discover why so many high-achieving women feel disconnected from their own pleasure, and the surprising truth about where that disconnection actually starts. How shame silently shapes your sexual experiences, and what it takes to break that cycle so you can finally stop abandoning yourself in intimacy. And 3, the small embodied shift that can completely transform how you experience your body, whether you are in a long-term relationship, navigating midlife, or rediscovering yourself on your own. Hello, beautiful souls. This is Ken as you at Midlife Butterfly. I do have the pleasure today to welcome Dr. Trina Read. She's a sexologist with over 25 years of experience helping women in long-term relationships reconnect to their bodies, their desire, and themselves, especially when life has quietly dimmed that connection. Her work is rooted in a powerful reframe. Women don't lose desire, they lose connection to themselves. And when sex feels uninteresting or obligatory, that's not a personal failing. It's an invitation to look deeper. Through her writing, podcast, Pursuit of Pleasure, and direct work with women, Trina explores how life's biggest transitions, like motherhood, perimenopause, long-term partnerships, burnout, can actually become doorways to deeper self-acknowledge and more intentional intimacy. And she knows this terrain personally, not just professionally, having navigated postpartum disconnection, menopause, and the messy real work of rebuilding closeness when avoidance felt easier. Thank you very much, Trina, for being here. And yeah, I don't know if you would like to add something else to your bio, but I think it's just so potent and powerful.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for having me on. And, I've been working with women for 25 years, and it's really just about, where women aren't taught about pleasure. We're not taught about our bodies. We're not taught about anything. And yet we're expected to really lay back and enjoy things in the bedroom. And so, it's podcasts like yours that let me just say what I have to say, and it's helping women. Like, this is the greater consciousness of helping women to embrace and show up for herself and for her partner. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. No, it's a pleasure having you here. And yeah, I want you to really do that. Feel that space open to share whatever it is that it's needed to be said, because unfortunately, sex is being a taboo for many women, including myself. Like at home, sex was not topic to talk about. And it's amazing how it can actually affect the relationship with ourselves as individuals, and then of course the relationship with other people, and especially if we have partners.
Well, just to give some perspective, and I think this is relevant to what you're saying. So, as you said, I've been doing this for 25 years, and when I first started, this was like 25 years ago, and there was no blogs or podcasts or any of that. I did a lot of mainstream media interviews. So I would, I've done over 1,000 interviews all over the world on TV and on radio and in newspapers, etc. And something that I started to see, first of all, when I was doing those interviews, I couldn't talk directly about sex. I had to talk around sex. So I couldn't go on TV and say sex. I would have to talk about intimacy or go talk around the topic. So that topic was never really mentioned
Mm.
in a healthy way, but also something that I came to understand is I could go on these talk shows and talk about all things sex negatives, like you have a sexual dysfunction, or your marriage needs sex therapy, or you've had a sexual trauma. Like I could talk about anything that was related to something that was sex negative, but the moment that I started speaking about female sexual pleasure, I got censored. And to this day, I still get censored. So if I go onto Instagram and I talk about women enjoying sex, it like I get blocked, I get banned, I get shut down. So the reason I'm telling you this is, women and men, they only really get a skewed perspective of what sex is. Like when if they're listening to the media, they're just hearing sex negative stuff, sex negative stuff. They're never really hearing anything that's female focused pleasure. So it's really difficult for women to understand and learn about herself and her body and her partner and all, like when the messaging is so skewed towards, sex is a terrible thing. It's like it's awful. Like does this make sense to you?
Yeah, of course it does. And I wonder if that actually has to, I mean, not that I'm blaming them because I know men now they are being brought to this, but I wonder if this is actually due to the patriarchy that is being rooted for a long time and not allowing women to really then feel that pleasure that it comes from our feminine side, which is actually our birthright, and that we have been kind of like suppressed because it's a superpower that we have when we are actually able to live in pleasure.
Well, that certainly is part of the equation. Like,
Hmm.
and you're absolutely right, but I don't think that's the entire equation. But I do feel like the difficulty for couples, men and women, if you're in a heterosexual couple, but so the difficulty for couples is the way we have sex is very male centric. So
Yeah.
it's very much about what the man wants to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the problem that I have been advocating for is women need to ask for what she wants.
Mhm.
So we're having a male-centric sex. It's, you know, and in a lot of ways that kind of sex is good and it's nice and it works, but women need something more.
Mhm.
And it's not up to her partner to figure it out. It's not up to her partner to make her feel good. It's not up to her partner to do like to understand what she wants. It's up to her to say to her partner, "Hey, you know what? I need something more from this experience. I like you, I like what we're doing, and I need something more." But unfortunately, the majority of women are not able to ask for something different. And the reason why is the majority of women don't know what they want out of the sexual experience. So if we had 100 women sitting in our rooms and you walked up to every woman and said, "What do you want out of the sexual experience?" I guarantee you, like 99 of them would say, "I don't know." And one woman would say, "Oh, I want a bigger, better orgasm because there's a feeling that if you have a bigger, better orgasm, it's magically going to make you feel like your sex life great." But that's that's not the magic bullet for women. What women need is sensuality. She needs to have that deeper connection. She needs to feel safe. She needs to have that connection to her partner. And, I think when that sensuality and that connection and that safety, she's not getting that from her partner, not because they're doing anything wrong, but because she's not asking for it. She starts to feel like she doesn't, it's not this experience isn't about her, it's about her partner because it's male centric, right? And it absolutely is about her partner. So then she blames her partner for, what's going on, but it's really comes down to, if she needs to, figure out, okay, if this isn't making me happy, then what do I need for this experience to make me happy? And then start asking for it, which I get is like huge. And like, so that's what you and I are up against. It's this idea of, women standing up for her sexual rights to say, hey, I need something different out of this experience. And, what always astonishes me is that the majority of partners want to know. They want to know what you want. They want to do different things. Like they want to have this experience. So on one side, you have the partner saying, tell me, I want to know, please let me know. And the woman's going, I can't tell them. I just don't feel comfortable. I'm just not confident. What if they reject me? So that's the situation I've been trying to solve
Mhm.
for many, many years.
And you think the base of this is actually shame because we have not taught since we are kids, right? On the contrary, it's like, don't touch yourself, or we're not even taught like the names or our intimate parts as women, which I think is crazy. And so I wonder if it's that shame that causes that fact of not being able to ask what we want to our partners, because first of all, we have shame of being with or on ourselves. Like,
Yeah, well, for sure. So I would say shame is absolutely like you're bang on for sure.
mhm,
Shame is a huge part of this, but also intertwined with shame is this idea that women were only taught to push pleasure away. So we were
mm,
never taught to bring pleasure in. So, growing up, we were told, don't get pregnant, don't get an STI, don't be a slut, don't dress that way. Like just don't bring any kind of attention to yourself, and for sure don't enjoy because like if you do, then you'll be a whore. And like that slut message is still very much out there, and that absolutely has everything to do with shame. So as women, we're conditioned and brought up to push our pleasure away, and then suddenly we're in this relationship where we have to like lean into the pleasure, like like our partner is doing things to us and we're like supposed to just lean in and feel that ecstasy like they do in the romance books. And it's just like women are like, I don't understand why I can't do that. So I'm learn leaning into your pleasure and your body. It's a skill set, and it takes effort and time and work. And part of that work is like when you get triggered by shame. So like your partner says something to you, or something happens and you feel that shame in your chest, like, and I it's in like part of this work is working through that, and so that you can start to like be free. And something I talk a lot about working through our shame in my book, You Mean Bed Now. And like it's writing down your sex history. So and it seems a little tedious and maybe a little cringy, but I promise you, when you start writing down your sex history and the things that happened to you, good and bad, and how that has shaped how you feel about your sexuality now. It's absolutely profound.
mm. I think it's one of the things that we don't question,
No,
right? We just leave it aside. And as you has been saying, we let a lot of the time the responsibility to our partner, and it's not their responsibility.
no,
It's
it's
our
not.
own. And then as women, then we tend to say, oh, no, I'm just not a sexual person. And it's like, are you really? Or it's just like all these, the box that you've been putting in a way that is doesn't allow you, as you said, then to feel that sensuality that it comes from within for you to be more curious and then develop, yeah, this desire for having sex.
Yeah, I think they think that, once you get into your long-term partnership, it's going to be like a light switch. You're going to go from, pushing pleasure away to all of a sudden like, oh, you're in a long-term relationship. Okay, you're good. Lights on. You can take lean into your pleasure. You can like do all the and it doesn't work. And this is something that just does not get discussed
Mhm.
within women. Like I don't think we have the language to talk about this.
Wow. And in that case, what do you think will be kind of like the language to bring the conversation to the table and to say, hey, let's talk.
Well, I feel like communication is like communication around sex with your partner is like probably in the top three hardest things that you can do in your life. And so, I find that couples can be together for 30, 40, 50 years and share their bodies, but never share their words. And so, the thing about, one thing we just take for granted is we feel like sex is just static. It's always going to be the same, but sex is an evolution. Just like our life is an evolution. It like our what we want out of the sex from our 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s is going to change. And so we have to communicate that to our partner. So, to answer your question, it's really about opening up a conversation to say, when we were first together, what we were doing was great, and now things are changed. Maybe you have kids, maybe you're in perimenopause, the our life has evolved and our sexuality has to evolve with it. And so it's just it it's just understanding where you are as a person and then having that conversation with your partner. And I really get that having that first conversation is so incredibly difficult. It's awkward and it's cringy. And the thing is, it's if you know that going in, you can just lean into the awkwardness, lean into the cringy. And the thing is, there's hundreds of me's in the world, like sexologists, and we all have YouTube channels and we all have Substacks. And so I find that a really great way to start a conversation with your partner is to just Google, what's going on with you. And there's going to be hundreds of things pop up, articles or blogs or YouTubes. And then you can share this with your partner. I mean, how great would it be if the two of you could sit in front of a YouTube and just there's and we sex experts, we're doing the heavy lifting for you. We're doing that. We're talking about what you need to talk about. So like we're doing the heavy lifting, and then you as a couple can say, this is an area where we can, you know open up our lives. Does that make sense?
Mm, yeah. I love what you said that we share the body and not the words.
Yeah.
Oof, that is so true.
Yeah, you share your most intimate of intimates with another person, but for some reason we cannot share our words. And I think it's, even though we are sharing our bodies, we still feel like if we share our words, we'll be rejected. And it's just so vulnerable to say to another human being, I really would like to try this, or I really need to have this,
Mhm.
right? It's very, very vulnerable.
Yeah. Wow, something to reflect about. I would like to ask you because you talk about sexual mindset.
Hmm.
So I would like you to explain more about what is it and how at the same time is a mirror of our self-worth as women. Yeah. What's your take on that?
Well, when I ask women, why do you have sex? Like, do you have sex for yourself and because it makes you feel good? Do you have sex because you know that it's going to be something that helps you, nurture yourself and your partner? Or are you having sex because your partner wants to have sex? So
Mm.
these are two very different reasons to have sex. And, chances are, when you first get with somebody, you positively anticipate sex. So you're with the person and it's like, oh my gosh, we're gonna, and you're anticipating being with each other. You're anticipating the fun you're gonna have. And then as you go into your relationship and it starts, to be more long term, because we're having this male centric sex and because women aren't communicating that they need something different, that positive anticipation turns into negative anticipation. And that becomes your sexual mindset, right? So your sexual mindset is simply the thoughts that you have before, during, and after sex. So, and the thoughts you have about sex before, during, and after have a profound effect on how you feel about yourself and the sexual experience, right? So, if when you're having these wonderful, like when you're in the first part of a relationship and you're positively anticipating sex and you're going into sex going, oh my gosh, this is great. And then during sex, you're like, this is great. And then after sex, it was like, that was great. But when you're not, your mindset is negative, when sex is initiated, you're like, do we really now you want now it's like, oh, okay, I guess so. And then for women who are in long-term relationships, they tend to have what's called a delayed sexual response. And what that simply means is it takes their body time to catch up. So sex is initiated,
Okay.
but they're in their heads and it's going to take them a minute or two or three to get into their bodies. So, sex initiated, you're like, why do I have to? So then sex is starting and you're in this delayed sexual response and you're like, I'm not there. I'm not there. I'm not there. Ugh, like, why am I here? And so this is adding to your negative mindset. So, generally your delayed sexual response lasts for about 10 minutes and then you connect into your body. But by that time, the sex will almost be over. I'm sure we've all had this experience where we're there and then like we're just coming out of it. And it's like, okay, hot dog, I'm here now. Like I'm here. I'm here. And then and the partner's like, well, I'm done. And you're like, well, what? Come on. And so then after sex, it's like, well, what was the point of that? Like that was all about my partner. That had nothing to do with me, right? So if you stay in this negative sexual mindset for too long, women often become apathetic about sex. It was what you were saying, like why bother? I'm just not that sexual of a person. You are that you're just sitting in this negative mindset. So this is, and I find that getting out of the mindset is really straightforward. It's just what we were talking about, asking for what you want, asking for your needs to be met. But
Mhm.
because women don't have that self-worth to be able just to say, hey, I deserve to have something more. Like my body deserves to feel these good feels. Like because women don't feel worthy that she should have this experience, she
Mhm.
doesn't ask for it. And, so, you know, I, so in my workbook, You Me Bed Now, we go through very small steps that a woman can do. And it's really about starting to ask for little tiny, like the most minuscule thing, like, maybe you can ask your partner to give you a kiss on the cheek. And, please don't roll your eyes at me because not you, but the people listening, because they're like, well, that's not a big deal. It is a big deal. Like when you start intentionally saying, I'm changing the, I'm pivoting from what we used to do. I'm now starting to stand up for myself. I am starting to stand up for my sexual needs. Like, so asking your partner to give you a kiss on the neck or the cheek, that's a huge, huge deal. So, you know, I don't think sexual mindset, like it's so ingrained in us that it does take a minute for you to turn this sexual mindset around,
Mhm.
but it's not as difficult. It's not difficult at all. It's just intentional and feeling that you're worth it to
Mm,
have this connection with yourself and your partner.
yes. Yeah, it definitely comes to that worthiness and saying, like, I'm worthy for it. And also, I can say what I want, right?
Yeah, because
What I desire, how I want to feel, how I want to be touched. And as you said, just a simple kiss that can make the difference, just having, let's say, that simple kiss in the morning before going to work. And then it's something sparkling, sparks within you. And then, there could be that playfulness during the day. Because I think sometimes that delay of the 10 minutes is because there was nothing before,
no,
right? So
you're
I
going
think,
from you're going from 0 to 60 in like
exactly.
30 seconds, and it's just like I gotta catch up. I gotta catch up. I can't catch up.
Yeah. So I think that if you're feeding it through the day, I don't know, with a little message, with sharing a song with your partner or things like that, that can spice things up, like saying, we're up to something later on at home, So probably those 10 minutes can go, I don't know, halfway. So it can be a different interaction at the end. And as you said, is that intention. And I think it's also that approach of us saying, yeah, like I really want to be with my partner, or probably not really, but what about if I feed it this time little by little so that then that desire can grow?
But and you see what you're doing. You're creating a positive anticipation.
Okay. That's
And
good.
also you're in control of it. Like you're not waiting for your partner to initiate it. You're being in control and having that sense of control and anticipation that completely changes your confidence and how you're showing up for this. And I just feel like a lot of this has to do with this worthiness stuff is just how confident you feel within your relationship. So what you're saying is really adding and building your confidence.
Mm, yes. And as you said, it's building it, because that's the only way we can do it. It's not that you have it and you don't have it.
Yeah, no,
Right.
it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
I'm 57 and I'm still working at it. Like it's never, you're never there. Like it's never just, oh, we're done. Like it's always like this work in progress.
Yes. Wow. Do you think also that this kind of, well, unworthiness that we feel is also like, I don't know, for what I have experienced in the last years, is also the lack of connection to our own body. Like we spend so much time in our head, and that's the way society in general works. It's just doing, and consuming. And I think that this connection with our own bodies and knowing who we are at a deeper level, that's what also doesn't allow us to have more intimacy with another person, not only sexually, but another level of conversation or playfulness.
For sure. And, something that I teach is that, the first step for women is to get back in touch with their body. And if you're not sure how that works, and most women aren't, it's about it starts with your five senses. So your hearing, your touch, your taste, your feeling, and your smelling. So, you can go through your day and start being really intentional about those sensations. So, like if you're sitting down to eat a meal, you're really tasting your meal. Like if you're having a glass of wine, you're really tasting that wine. Like a lot of us just eat mechanically we're kind of tasting our food, but not really. Like we're just, and if you're in the shower, you're feeling the sensation of the water dripping down your body, right? Like it's very tactile. Maybe if you have a candle, you turn, that candle scent, you're smelling that candle scent. So these these aren't hard things to do. And I just find women want to skip over this stuff. Like it just seems like, candle smell, I get it. It's good. I need to like wake myself, blah. But, I'm just, I've got too much going in on my day and I'm just so frazzled and trying to make time to connect with my body and be intentional with my eating. It's just, I get that it's a good thing, but, I just don't have the time. But I just feel like, you know, it, it only takes like a minute a day. It's just remembering to do it. So, it isn't a big ask. And, the return on your investment is huge, right? It's just huge because not only are you able to go into the bedroom with your partner and be a lot more present with your partner, be able to start leaning into your pleasure like we asked, because you're connecting with your body. And so obviously when you do that, it's so much easier to feel what your partner's doing to you. So yeah, it is a habit, and you do have to remember to do it. But honestly, what you get out of it is huge. It's just huge. So yeah, and it just starts with noticing, like maybe you like to listen to music and you allow yourself just to really, like, you're going to listen and you're like really enjoying this music. And, I don't know if that makes sense to you, but like
Yeah.
uh, for women, there tends to be that part of us that, I can't really enjoy this. I have to like temper this. I can't
Mm.
really enjoy this food. I can't really enjoy this music. I have to kind of keep this at a certain level, and letting yourself really go for it and enjoy it. That's excellent training
Yeah.
for you to be in touch with your body.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. That's true. We cap ourselves
Yeah.
because we're afraid to be too much or not
Yeah.
enough or whatever our mind is telling us and the programming is telling us. And but why not?
Yeah.
And I
Well,
think that's, yeah, go ahead.
oh no, I mean, like, so if what's the difference between you enjoying you know, a glass of wine 50% or 100%? Like, what's the difference? Like, there's no difference. It's all in our heads. It's just in our heads.
Yeah. And I think that's because we cap ourselves. I think that's why this idea of, not idea, I mean, it's a fact that we have as women now, it's like reclaiming our pleasure. And then
Mhm.
we feel that we are selfish, or again, that we are unworthy of having that, which is a birthright. And really, that reclamation is when we step for ourselves and saying, I do deserve it,
Yeah.
because nobody else is going to come and give it to you. Because at the end, as you said, it's in the mind. So it's like, okay, are you open to receive it? Are you open to then, as you said, those little practices that are going to bring you there to then explore and start playing with that pleasure that it comes from everything, not only from sex, but from different things in life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I just feel like the world, when you start being present and in your body and you're paying attention, the world opens up. And it's not just about, as you say, it's not just about sex, but like you start being that person who has that little sexy cachet about them because you're enjoying things. And, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you see a person walking down the street and they're not necessarily good looking, but they've got something about them.
Mhm.
And like they've got that it factor. And, when you start embracing this part about you, you become that person. Like, it doesn't matter what you look like.
Mhm.
It's just you've got that it, and people are like, oh, what is that? And it's just you being, accepting all of this wonderful, and celebrating all this wonderful, sensation around you. Like you're that person.
And you know what? It's funny because I've been feeling it lately, actually, and it feels so good.
Yeah. Well done you. Well done you.
I mean, I've done a lot of work to get into this point, but I mean, it's just so beautiful just to feel on your own feet and saying, yeah, this is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Mm-hmm.
here to, to enjoy life and to take any pleasure that life has here to offer me, as simple as going for a walk and feeling the wind in my face. Or as you said, when someone passes by and sometimes they are like, like looking at me and like, is she crazy? She's smiling at herself. Yeah, I'm smiling at herself, but I feel so good, you know?
You've got the it thing, you got the it factor.
Yes, yeah.
And that is
So
irresistible. That is catnip to like it's just such a like everybody wants that. That's what everybody wants to have. And everyone can access that.
yes, they can. And thank you for saying that because for me, healing my relationship with sex, I mean, I didn't have any abuse or anything, but just the fact that sex was a taboo at home of not speaking about it, it has shifted my first decades in such a strong way that it
Yeah.
actually affected my. I've been married twice and did affect my marriage,
Hmm.
both of them, and yeah, so it has taken a lot of work to get out of there. And at this point of my life, to say, like, yes, I love living in pleasure in any kind of it and being able to express myself fully. And that also takes all these what we have been talking about, like feeling self-worth and feeling that you deserve more than you think and doing all these different tiny practices because at the end is every habit that we put into our life daily that it shifts how we behave and who we are, and that's a big like differentiator. It's taking those mini shifts that you
Hmm.
mentioned before. It's not
Yeah.
like a turning page right away. No, it's a little by little moment, but it is possible. I have experienced it in my life.
Yeah. And good for you for, you know, turning this around because it is a big deal and it was a lot of work.
Yes.
And like if you could say what's the biggest thing that has changed for you, what would it be? Like just like how you feel about yourself and your connection with your partner or what?
Yeah, it will be more about how I feel about myself.
Yeah.
Because since I shift how I feel about myself, how I see myself, of course, by consequence, that changed the relationship with my partner, And I mean, at this moment, I don't have a partner, but I mean, I know it have
Yeah.
shifted with a few people that I've been with, and that's how the shift happens. It's really
Nice.
with myself, and that's reflected to others.
Yeah. And it all starts with you. Like it all starts with
Yes.
like it just starts with us. And then it
Yes.
it radiates out for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Because then now I'm able to ask and to explore and to be more playful instead of being, all shamed or not being able to speak what I wanted or not even asking the other person what they wanted,
Yeah.
which makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Good for you. Well done. That's wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, it has been quite a journey there that I'm happy that I mean it never ends, but I do believe that the work that I've done so far is shown out there. Yeah. And so I know you work specifically for women in long relationships. But as me, that I am a single at this moment, and I know there are a lot of women who listen to this podcast who are single. What do you recommend in the case for us to, well, I kind of say what I have done in my own journey, but from your experience, what can they do in the meantime that they actually have a partner to then, arrive to this pleasure to be able to speak what they want?
Well, I think being single is a great opportunity to, as you say, get to know yourself. So every sex expert under the sun says, you can only tell your partner what you want when you know what you want and how to get there, right? So how do you find that out? Well, you have to start exploring yourself. And, so there's a lot of great tools out there for women to start, understanding what she wants. There's a website called OMGYES, and Indiana University surveyed over 20,000 women asking what they like and what they want. And so this OMGYES is about the answers. And so it's really an education forum for women to say, what brings them pleasure, we talk about women don't ask her what they want because she doesn't know what she wants. And so when you have a website like OMGYES, it's teaching you about your body, your anatomy. Like you said to me, most women can't even properly say what their anatomy is. And OMGYES is like so much more than that. But so you go on there and it's, you learn about pleasure, you learn about, what gives women pleasure, it has 3D, like you can, it's got all the stuff. And if you are interested, you can go on to my website, trinaread.com, and under products, there's OMGYES, and I've got a landing page that it talks about like so much better than what I'm doing right now. So you can learn about it. But I would say there, if you're single and you want to learn about your body and this is the time to do it so that when you get into your next partnership or not, you can understand what pleases you. And, there's many ways to do that. It doesn't all have to do with buying a vibrator. Like that's one way of finding your pleasure, but there's so many other ways. It's called erogenous mapping. It's called erogenous mapping. And so you can, start understanding what what does it for you, like what you like to do. And I think this is a wonderful time and opportunity.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna look into that.
Yeah, go look it up. It's a really great website, and they have over 1 million people who've used it who said they were happy. And it's it's so cheap. That's so cheap. I think they priced it, I think it's $40 or something for their program. And I think they priced it so that every woman could access it, right? So it's really cheap and it's really great, like super great information.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate
You're welcome.
And I would like you to talk about your book, the Taboo. What is it more in essence that you are speaking in there? And also, yeah, what would be one of, or some, I don't know, of the lessons that we can learn to actually wash out or, release that taboo that we have in our minds about sex?
Yeah, so during the pandemic, I decided to start writing what's called self-help fiction. So it's a combination of sex ed in a fiction format.
Mhm.
So I have four women, four very, very different women. And the first book was called The Sex Course. And it's about four women who take a sex course. And, and what I really enjoyed about this is the women were all receiving the same sex ed information, but depending where they were in their lives, like one woman is single, one woman is married, one woman has kids, one woman's in perimenopause. So, like, how these women received the sex ed was very different. And, the books are. The books are about their care, about their journey. So one woman is faking orgasm. One woman is, she's resentful of her husband. Like, so these are the things that women typically, situations women find themselves in. And so in their character arc or character journey, they are coming to understand how to deal with it. So what I'm hoping for women is they're going to read this and say, "Oh, I relate to that one character, and here's how she managed to get through it." So, The Taboo Show is my second book in the series, and the four women go to the Taboo Sex Show. So, the Taboo Sex Show is an actual show that happens here in Western Canada. And, again, it's so each woman has something that she's dealing with. And so at the Taboo Show, they're introduced to all these different ideas. So one woman goes to a tantric seminar, one woman goes to a G-spot seminar, another woman is, like, so they're all experiencing different things at the Taboo Show, and this is opening up their awareness of, like, oh, I didn't think tantric would be for me, but and so you learn about what tantric is, and yeah, I just feel like when women are given options, when they're like, oh, I thought BDSM, do you know what BDSM is? Like, so S&M. So it's like 50 Shades of Grey. Do you know 50 Shades of Grey?
Yeah.
That S&M. So a lot of people feel like BDSM is just way too hardcore, like way, like, it's good for somebody else, but like I would never try that.
Okay.
And so one character goes into the BDSM tent and she has an experience, and you're like, oh, is that what it is? Okay, well, maybe I could like BDSM. Like maybe I could be into that. So it's the Taboo Show is really about where the sex course was about, the education of women. The Taboo Show is about opening up women's, experiences to, well, maybe I could like tantric. Well, maybe I could like, you know, these different types of sexuality, and yeah, maybe I could, and making it accessible for
Mm.
women. It's like, oh, it's not that far out of my reach. I probably could do this tonight, like, this, maybe I could. So
Mhm.
that's the Taboo Show. The character arcs are, about each woman opening up herself to this experience and what that's like. And, and, I think it's really interesting writing in fiction because, like when I write in nonfiction, like I'm giving information, like, in order to enjoy sex, you need to do X, Y, and Z. But in fiction, you're saying, the character saying, well, I don't like X, Y, and Z, or I don't want to do X, Y, and Z, or, like, how am I supposed to figure that out? Like they're asking the questions that women are asking. They're
Mm.
like trying to figure this out, like women are trying to figure this out. So, fiction is an incredibly powerful modem to get this sex education out to women. So yeah, the Taboo Show, it's a really, I think most women can relate to at least one character in the book, and relate to this wanting to try something, but not really sure how to do it and how to get there. And then once you're there, you're like, oh, well, why didn't I try that sooner? Like,
Mhm.
why not? Why not?
Oh, I love it. Oh, and it's great, I guess. Yeah, so it's a continuation of the other one. So I think, yeah, I think many times we think we're alone, right, in our own journeys. And it's like, I mean, we're 8 billion people here, and most of us were women. So, of course, a lot of, stories are going to be similar to others. And I think when we can relate to others, it's easier to bring it to the table and to say, oh, yeah, I am that too. Or, oh, yeah, I'm going through that too. So then we are able to then speak it up, at least, if we have hopefully close friends that we are able to do that and then start exploring like what else it is, as you're saying in your taboo show. It's like, what else is there for
Yeah.
us to explore?
So now I'm just writing my third book, the third book in this series,
Mhm.
and so the women are learning to lean into their pleasure.
Oh
So
my
like
God.
that's their next journey is,
Mhm.
like so they've were educated and then they started asking for something different and now the third book they're learning to lean into their pleasure. So, fingers crossed, this can hopefully open a lot of women's sexuality.
Yes, yes, please. It's so needed. It is so needed. Talking about that, what would be kind of like two, let's say, two things that we can do to lean more into our own pleasure?
I would say, first of all, it's what we talked about, just starting to be very intentional about feeling your body, like getting
Mhm.
into understanding what your favorite sense is, because we all have a favorite sense.
Okay.
And, I would, and also I think catching ourselves when we start thinking negatively about ourselves or how sexy we are or our bodies, like when we look at ourselves in the mirror and we think, "Ah,"
Yes.
like that's absolutely impacting your ability to be present with yourself and your partner, right? So I just feel like women, we talk negatively to ourselves way too much, and especially in how we perceive ourselves and our bodies and how we look, and it's like when we were 20. When we were 20, we would look in the mirror and we'd be like, oh, I look so terrible. And now you look back at yourself at 20, you're like, oh, I look so good. I look so good at 20. Why would I ever say I look bad? But we're still doing that to ourselves. We're still looking in the mirror and we're only looking at what's wrong with us. So I just, start being more kind to yourself.
Yes.
And that's going to go far and translate to you being more present in the bedroom.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I remember when I decided to become my best friend, everything shifted. And the first thing that I started applying was changing my vocabulary
Hmm.
because my conversation was so mean to myself.
Yeah.
And that's true. Like one will start changing, our own the relationship with ourselves and how we talk to ourselves. It's amazing then how that has a ripple effect with others.
Yeah. I just feel like we're either our best friends or our worst enemies. And, why not make yourself your best friend?
Exactly.
Why not?
Exactly. And it's as simple as I remember that I used to be like, okay, how will I speak to my best friend? And I was like, so instead of trashing her, I'm going to say, no, you can do it. Or, like I will talk to I was treating myself like a third person, literally, to be able to then become my best friend and how it just shifted. It was just so, I mean, it changes everything, as simple as you said, because otherwise, being our worst enemy, what's the point? I mean, we
Yeah.
have only one life.
Yeah. No, but it's just, yeah. So it's just catching yourself.
Yes.
Um, and I think if you can start doing those two things today, you know I would just do a check-in in a week and see how things have shifted in your head.
Hmm.
Probably really like some amazing things could be happening.
Yes. Yeah. And also I'm going to recommend to our listeners to actually journal about it, just to, to see where they are now. And then in a week, like saying, okay, what has shifted? Because for sure something will shift, and it will shift for good.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, beautiful. Trina, sorry, as we're come to kind of like wrapping up our conversation, our beautiful conversation today, will is there something else that you would like to add to our audience that you think is relevant and more for midlife? I mean, we are halfway if we are lucky enough to live at least a few more decades. Yeah, what is something that you would like to share with our audience that it's very relevant in our pleasure, in our sex, in our sensuality as women?
Well, I would say that our mother's generation, when they hit our age, they're like, well, we're done. We're done. Like we're in perimenopause or menopause, and we don't have to worry about that part of our lives anymore. And they cut their hair and they put on muumuus. And our generation, it's like, this is just the beginning.
Yes.
This is just the beginning. And we are at a place in our lives where we've got a lot more confidence. We don't care as much about if we've got a little jiggle on our body, like we've got all this wisdom and moxie from a lifetime of wisdom. And, I would just say this is the time to let your freak flag fly. Like, just let it fly because, as we go into this point in our life, sex becomes more about sensuality than it does about, you know, and that's where your mind-blowing sex lives is, you and your partner connecting at a deeper spiritual sensual level. And so this is not the end. This is just the beginning. And let's celebrate that.
Yes, let's celebrate that. Yes, it's just the beginning. And I'm going to have to ask you something else because it's a question that it just came with that. The fact that when we are having like a sexual encounter with our partners, I have read more about the fact that it's not just the actual sex. And then we were saying at the very beginning, no, just only 11 minutes and it's done. And then you are like, what happened? I'm not here yet. And because now it's more about that playfulness and more about, you were talking before actually about tantric sex. And I know that one is more related to the presence, to being present, and more about enjoying the moment itself with your partner than more the overriding of that orgasm that of course we want, but it's more about that wave and not the peak itself.
That's right. Yeah. So the thing is, when we start getting to this age, both people, their bodies stop working the way they used to. So, you have to do workarounds a lot of times. And that means, you know, instead of, like you have to, so you get to have opportunities where it's more about giving each other an erotic massage, or like it's all about the touching and the closeness. And the tantric, it's, as you say, it's about being very present with, but what this actually translates to is, instead of going really 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 fast, it's slowing down
Mhm.
and being very, being slow and intentional and present. And, I think it does take a bit of an adjustment, especially if you've only been used to having very fast intimacy. But ultimately, when you do slow down and you do open up, like, it's honestly, you just reach the next level of pleasure with
Mhm.
yourself, and or maybe with a partner.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that. That sounds very yummy.
It does.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm going to be sharing all your contact information in the show notes so people know how to find you there and where to find you and get your books if they are interested. And I would like to know, what's a pleasure that you enjoy the most?
Well, I don't know if I enjoy this the most, but something that brings me deep joy and pleasure is every day I take my dog for a walk, and I live by a wooded area, so I'm walking through forests, and so I'm forest bathing every day, and I'm just really like, I'm always just really present. Like for some reason, that's my place where I can just be very present, have that minute of being present, and like I'm just aware of everything, of all the birds singing and the leaves fluttering, like it's all of it. And that it's just a dog walk, but I'm really tuned in, and it's a lovely place to be.
That sounds delicious too. And how would you call this season or this very period that you are in your midlife? How would you call it?
I would just say I am the person that I always wanted to be when I was 20.
Mm.
I'm the person I just wish I could have been like this. I was 20. And I'm just so happy that I made it here. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to beat myself up that it took this long to figure it out. But yeah, I'm the person I always wanted to be when I was 20.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
I know.
As like you, it's been a lot of work, but I'm so glad I made it here.
Yeah. Wow. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Trina. I really appreciate it. I love this conversation, and I loved I know our listeners are going to be also, very pleased about it. So thank you for your presence here, for your energy, and for all the wisdom that you have shared.
That was delightful, and thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. In this episode, you learn why so many high-achieving women feel disconnected from their own pleasure, and the surprising truth about where that disconnection actually starts. How shame silently shapes your sexual experiences, and what it takes to break that cycle so you can finally stop abandoning yourself in intimacy. And the small, embodied shift that can completely transform how you experience your body, whether you are in a long-term relationship, navigating midlife, or rediscovering yourself on your own. If this episode spoke something deep inside you, send me an Instagram DM at Midlife Butterfly. I love to know what resonated with you the most. And let's close this episode with a coming home question. Where in your body have you been holding back? And what would it feel like to finally give yourself permission to be fully present there? Thank you so much for listening. Much love to you as usual, and I'll see you at the next episode. Take care.